If we can take our seats, please, we're going to start with the next panel and answer a lot of questions that you may have at the G1 level and lower. Our next panel will start in 1 minute. 1 more minute, we'll be starting the next panel.
Yeah, I saw the edge, keep my knee.
There's water all over. Okay, for our second panel, we have some different warrant officers up here, and they're gonna talk about their specific roles and responsibilities that helps shape and run and manage the entire cohort. Kind of answer some of the questions that you had on. You hear a lot of efforts going on, but this is the action arm of a lot of the policies that you're asking about. So now it's to really get deep into some of the questions that are cohort driven. So we're fortunate to have a group of subject matter experts for the warrant officer cohort supporting the Chief of Staff of the Army's focus areas. And if you know, that's top-down driven, and it can't overemphasize the importance of having a Chief Warrant Officer of the Army to represent our equities within all of those focus areas. So there's a focus area, you got commissioned officer representation, NCO representation. Now we can have at the Chief of Staff of the Army complete representation. So our moderator tonight for this morning is for our session is the Maneuver Supportive Center of Excellence, the Command Chief Warrant Officer, CW5 Dean Registe. That's why I ask, because I have a bad habit of that. Our panelists tonight are CW5 Belton from Headquarters DAG1, who will discuss manning and policy. CW5 Lawrence from the Talent Management Task Force, Senior Warrant Officer Advisor, and he'll explain where that's going, focusing on talent management as a whole, not from a 420 Tango perspective, but for the Army as a whole. CW5 Davis from the MI COE, Command Chief Warrant Officer, addressing warrant officer management of 011 Alpha billets. CW5 Tyrones is the CAC, the Combined Arms Center Command Chief Warrant Officer, which is, if you don't know what the Command Arms Center Chief Warrant Officer does, please ask him, because it is a daunting task to keep after, where all the COEs come together, and that's where really PME hits the peak. Talking about PME modernization, you got CW4 Fry at the end for the Warrant Officer Recruiting Commander, and we're going to talk about recruiting. So once again, handing over to the moderator from the MCOE. Take it away.
Thank you, Doug. All right. So the first question we have is for CW5 Belton from HQ Day G1. How does current manning policies impact the readiness of warrant officer cohorts, and what changes are being considered to improve personnel distribution across the force?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. What a pleasure to be here and to see such a fine group of warrant officers all in one room. I question how much the Army is getting derailed right now that we're all in this room, not helping steer everyone. So a little bit of a complicated question, and we could do a dissertation on manning guidance and equitable distribution, but I think it boils down to two key factors. We can't man the force if we can't assess and retain. So those two universes are what we deal a lot with in the DMPM and in the G1. Accessions, it's a group effort, and we know Chief Fry and his team have done amazing efforts, but it's also the branches as well. You are the other half of the recruiting element, along with the professional recruiters. So we have done a little bit of an overhaul to help assist with that recruiting effort, and that is in the waiver process. So I've probably spoken to a lot of you in this room. It's great to see some faces to names. But the waivers process, we've adapted it to help bring in more talent that may just be a little bit over those lines that would normally not allow them to come in. The second is in retention. So just recently we did a massive change to our organization at the DMPM, and we've actually stood up an entire retention section. So chaired by an 05, they have a small MTA or TDA of people. Shameless plug, the director of that section is looking for a warrant officer. So doesn't need to be a particular branch, just happy, ready to work, and wants to come to DC. So there is now a whole section in the DMPM solely devoted to retention, and we've yet to see the benefits of that because we're still building the team right now. Right now, it's a one-woman show. The 05, she's by herself, but she is doing an awesome job to grab all of the retention efforts, put them all in one unified front, push them so that the senior leaders are educated on what we have, and then start working on new ones.
Thank you. Are there any questions? So what we'll do is after every question, we can open it up for a few questions. If anybody has any questions, and then we'll just keep it flowing from there. Yes, sir.
Chief Delegate, AFCCCW. Can you just quickly?
We have a mic coming. Left.
Hey, Chief Dela Cruz, AFCCCW. Can you quickly just discuss a little bit about the streamlining of the MOX packets to the community here, how they push forward? I know General Braga talked about innovation, emerging technology, new MOS. General Rainey says the same thing. So what's that process to streamline to get 3 extra tables in this room next year or in the years to come?
Excellent question. So not particularly my area of expertise. I do have a phone a friend table over here that is filled with AG professionals that may have some insight after I run out of words. However, senior leaders are listening. And so when we see 420 Tango, the effort and the energy that went into that, the senior leader focus that went into 420 Tango, the robotics warrant, the 390 Alpha, streamlining the process, it is still going to always be an arduous process. Change always is. However, it's really on us and the leaders to get the senior leaders aware of the change that needs to happen, because once we have their horsepower, that's how we get a 420 Tango, magic to happen. But I will defer to a phone a friend table here if there's any more that may know, because there's the entire G1 at one table.
Short answer is yes, that packet does lie within the headquarters G1 realm. I'm not going to give you the long answer because we'll be here all day, but that is definitely a headquarters G1 process, but it is not a GMPM process. Does that make sense? It's not. So that goes into a different section of the headquarters G1. Is that fair? And we can get you more. We can get you more of that after this meeting. So, yes.
Thank you, Ms. Sanchez. Any other questions?
Are we allowed to ask questions from up here?
Sure.
No, just, so CW5 Brandon Lawrence on the Army Talent Management Task Force, now the Talent Innovation Directorate. But when I'm going out and talking and engaging with the service members and those looking for opportunities to become warrant officers, they often ask about ACFT and waiver availability. Is there any momentum to look at that and see if we can refine it a little bit to help some of those members that may not meet the current 6 event standard?
So in keeping with the trend of asking me questions that are not in my lane, that is, of course, the G357, right? Now, having worked with them on many occasions about ACFT issues, since the warrant officer, it is an initial entry avenue, and it's treated and considered the same as OCS. So right now, there is not an appetite to pull back from basic requirements that they share across our officer accessions pathways. And that is not something so far that we've seen. We have not set that precedence. There is flexibility in the policy to allow it, but it is written as of right now for very specific, very specific criteria. So currently there is no appetite. I know that's not the best answer, but it is an answer. And having worked with the G357 on this problem, they seem to be fairly staunch with it.
Yeah, coming from the proponent office, I should have known that. Yeah.
Did that answer your question, brother?
Wow, you got a lot of. So since we have a microphone over there, if you have a question, could you just please line up behind the microphone and get after it so we can expedite the questions, please?
I'll speak real loud. Real quick.
I know you will.
Yeah, I just want to make a quick comment real quick, and Ms. Miller would probably appreciate this, because she probably had, I think she had a voodoo doll for a while down at DMPM. But I think the important thing I learned is that SF branch, we led the way on the direct commission W2 for a few years, and I think we started that like 5 years ago. It's really, when you go to DMPM with something, it's just really understanding, hey, is it an Army regulation or is it a law? And having a better understanding of that, and then communicating with them early and often, and kind of appreciating the process, and then also understanding that, the Army has priorities of their staffing things, and patience really matters, and just continuing to try to just communicate with the NPM, and understanding that really right off the bat, understanding, hey, am I asking to change an Army policy, or am I asking to change a law? Because that process is completely different.
And to follow comment, if you have weird questions that aren't necessarily in the DMPM, please do get them to me. I will find where they belong and get you to the right person. I mean, that is the one thing we do try to do is be a link to the force. Leave no RFI unanswered. So please send them to me, and I will find the right people because I know who to call and ask to get it to you.
Thank you. I think there was another question out there, ma'am. You had another question? Okay. All right. So the second question we have is for CW5 Lawrence from ATID. The recent RAND study on warrant officer accessions reveals several key insights. Were there any findings or surprises from the study that you believe will significantly impact how we approach talent management for warrant officers moving forward?
Yeah, thank you, and that's a great question. And as we're looking and coming on board in the Army Talent Innovation Directorate, just want to, TMTF is going away, it's sunsetting, so a task force is by design only supposed to be for a specific amount of time. But we didn't solve all the Army talent management problems, so there's a realization that we need to provide some permanent structure to continue to get after this. But from my level under the G1 currently, we're not doing specifically talent management. We're trying to set the conditions through talent innovation to allow the people in this room and the leaders in the Army to do talent management at the HRC level, at the leader level, those types of things. So that's why the name has changed. And if you're looking for me in the global, it's Richard Brandon Lawrence, not Brandon W. Lawrence. I'm an MI guy by trade, so it's OPSEC. But if you're looking to follow up after this, just wanted to put that out there. So the RAND study. So we're currently in year 2 of a 3-year RAND study. If you're not familiar with the RAND study, started back in the 2019-2020 timeframe when the Army was a little bit different than what it is now. We were coming out of the COIN stability operations fight. We're looking at growing force structure, and we did it rapidly, whether it be the MDTFs or the theater fires elements or the 5th Corps reconstitution. And SFABs were still a thing back then and a high priority. But what happened with that is we had challenges filling operational strength requirements. So most of those were in the field grade warrant officer ranks, so W3s and W4s. I can't grow W3s and W4s in the Army very rapidly. So we had to figure out a way to look at the entire process. And that's why the study is titled Addressing the Warrant Officer Pipeline Challenges. So it was supposed to go from retention or sessions, how we do our assessment selection, how we train them in walks and WOBC, continue to develop them, how we do the assignments, all of those areas. But I think the most revealing thing for me with the initial study results, this is just the initial ones, the final ones are not due until November of 2025, is that we've come a long way. So warrant officers didn't wait for the Army to do a study and tell us what our problems are. We were able to go through and we were able to get after a lot of these different things, whether it's through the DMPM and refining the policy. whether it's through CAC PME modernization, the accessions, the recruiting. You'll hear Mr. Fry talk about that. So we got after a lot of those challenges, and as a result, as the study was ongoing, they realized that we're not going to be able to do this cumbersome analysis from cradle to grave of tech warrant officers. There's too many varieties, too many flavors, too in-depth of a problem to solve because it's not a one-size-fits-all solution for everybody. So as the study continued and through IPRs and senior leader interactions, the final problem statement, instead of mapping the accession or the entire pipeline, is how do we retain our W3s and W4s? Because we're losing significant amount of W3 and W4 technical expertise right at 20 years when they're eligible to retire. Seems like an easy problem to get after, but it's pretty complicated. So we're looking at a lot of different things within the three themes that Rand put out there for the study. And I say we've come a long way, but we also have a long way to go. When we look at the initial themes, it's assessing and revalidating the definition of a warrant officer. Is that something we need to do? Is the current definition that's on the books and the expectations of senior leaders what it needs to be for today? But in 2030, 2040, how does that change between there? How do we do the assessment to figure out, okay, what is the Army requirement? And then how do we modify the rest of the system to produce warrant officers that meet that requirement? So still a long way to go. The other one is in force structure and management. A lot of the stuff that happened and the strength challenges that we're facing were kind of self-induced. We grew too fast, and we didn't balance out what the requirements are over the years and then modify our accessions to meet those requirements. We overloaded the accessions process, then we had to go through and fix the WOBC and walks throughput, and now we're kind of aligning and we're getting on a good glide path to where we're going to be able to fill a lot of our requirements. We're predicted to be at 90% aggregate, I think, next year, and then up to 95% by 2027. So we have a glide path to get there, but we need to figure out in the future if we need to continue to change to meet future force requirements. Can we put mechanisms in the G3 force structure management process to limit the percentage to a certain percent of the population or a certain percent of the grade so we don't do this again to ourselves later on the road? And the other thing, and why we have to fix the force structure problem, is because a lot of our warrant officers are overworked at where they're at. So we talk about retention, and if we have a shortage of individuals at the field grade level, those individuals are not going to let the mission fail. They're going to continue to row hard. They're going to work to get the mission done, but at the end of the day, they're going to have to reflect and see, do they want to still continue to serve in that capacity if there's no help coming in the future? So the main thing that we're looking at and trying to fix from our standpoint, because force structure, we can work that, is the assignment and career management aspect. So when we talk about talent management, how do we manage our warrant officers? Is the current AIM, ATAP process what it needs to be to do career management? It's up for debate. There's some people that like it, usually the people that get the locations that they want to go. There's a lot of people angry with the process because there's not enough jobs available, those types of things. So what we're trying to do is build a menu of options for career management to allow leaders at all levels to kind of manage their branch, their MOSs at their level instead of a one-size-fits-all solution for everybody. So working with HRC to maybe consolidate the AIM cycles, make everybody move in the field grade warrant officer ranks in the summer cycle. The theory behind that is, it'll provide more opportunity for personal and professional development options. Will it work? I think it is, because most of the branches are already doing that. So just codifying the process. But we have to look at a way and figure out how to build the culture in the Army to allow people to continue to want to serve, because the retirees, or the people that are already selected to retire, in the RAND study that were surveyed, 84% of them were very satisfied or satisfied with the job that they had. So their job satisfaction is there, but when you get to that 20-year mark and you're looking at that calculus, the quality of life and some of those other aspects, you're going to weigh in that decision to continue to serve, and it seems like we haven't set the conditions for improved quality of life to allow people to continue to serve in the job that they like to do. So not a really specific answer. There's a lot of work to do, but I'm interested in the feedback from the personnel in this room and the cohort or how we get after this problem.
Thank you. Any questions? Oh, got one. Let's see, this is...
Good morning, CW5 Goodwin from the Army G2X. And I have a question about college degrees inside PME. I realize that there are some programs for the officers and even some for the senior enlisted that offer a college degree of some type, whether it's an associate's, a bachelor's, a PhD, whatever it is there consideration of looking at the warrant officer cohort as having a PME that actually provides that level of a university level degree so that you're killing two birds with one stone? Because I have mad respect for individuals who use their GI Bill and can do it while they're on active duty, going to work every day and getting a college degree. But I wonder if there is an opportunity within the Warrant Officer Corps to have that happen during PME so that you're doing two things at one time.
Yeah, I think there are opportunities, and I think part of the PME modernization, they're working towards getting PME to where it needs to be and potentially accredited, those types of things, but it's going to happen probably at the individual COE level. I'm not sure if CAC has any other comments on that one, but it's the expectations of what we want our warrant officers to do. Do you have to have a college degree to become a warrant officer? There's no regulatory requirement, but there's an expectation at certain levels that you will have a college degree. So maybe looking at other opportunities to make it easier for our warrant officers to get college degrees, as like the TA, trying to get rid of the 2-year TA ADSO requirement that they don't have on the enlisted side, and see if there's other opportunities to afford the education requirements as we work to develop PME to get to that standard.
Ms. Golden, and coming from that side of the house, did you ever remember regarding the third, y'all only in school for a certain amount of weeks. Is that enough time to get a degree? So that has to match. Those guys that are going for officers, they're in school for what, 6 months? Almost a year? So they can get a degree. We're only going for 8, 9 weeks, you know, or 4 weeks. 4 months in a career. Yeah, so how does that equate to you get a
middle ground there is middle ground, and that's the fact that historically, when Warrant Officer ILE and Warrant Officer SSC were established, there was a partnership with Webster University that awarded between 6 and 9 semester hours for a master's program. So, speaking to that point that Charmaine just mentioned, the duration that you're going to school, you cannot have a reasonable expectation that you're going to come out with a degree. Now, we offer the advanced civil school for warrant officers. Whether or not they're supposed to apply for it, get selected, that's on you. But to expect that we're going to go to school, we already have a challenge with getting warrant officers to go to PME, and it's only 30 to 60 days, and it's not all people. So, yes, I'll get off my high horse, but I'm going to get on the high horse.
Giddy up.
I was super frustrated with this topic, and I went in there like, I am going to solve this problem. And I went to probably a half dozen colleges and universities with all 3 of our POIs, which we've been running a basic course, advanced course, and IOs for years. Try to lay it out and show them like, hey, here is all the PME for 1A. Let me tell you what, there's not one college or university in this country that gives a shit about your education. They wanted to know how many credit hours you're going to take with them, how much you're going to do. That's all they care about. So thinking that a college and university is going to look out of their time and their heart, taking into consideration what the warrant officer is doing and the limited community we're going to. I mean, we've been having this conversation for decades, and I just don't think we need to get there. I just provide one follow-up, and then we'll kind of move on.
You're cut off.
And a lot of it comes down to resources. And when we did the PME modernization, I went personally to the CP Peg and asked for $25 million. They came back and said, you need to find no pay for all the modernization you're doing. So there was no actual money, nobody was going to drive off the bridge truck. Here, do what you need to do with PME modernization, making sure we have no there. So it's a resource piece of that too. And then it's an accreditation piece. We just, and I think Ms. Hilliard brought it up, we just don't have the duration of PME right now for those universities to be able to accredit the courses that we do. Now, some of the proponents, I think Ms. Davis is a good example, they've had some very good success in being able to get portions of their GOI accredited to provide credit hours. But overall, we're just not in a place where we're going to, bring more officers out of the field for a year or something.
You're not good.
I would say probably half
me turn
the
off
board
this.
says that they're already out of their unit too long to attend the very short PMU that we have. So I don't know if there's human tribe desire across the cohort to be able to do that. And that goes back to the mixed messaging that we talked about earlier. We got half the cohort saying we should, half the cohort saying we shouldn't. We're not driving that out of mixed messaging. So it's multiple different things along the way.
Yes. Yes.
I remember, it was a while ago, but I can remember when I was in Minneapolis, the discussion was about the officers sometimes don't understand the warrant officers, they're not keeping the officers there, right? So I looked at it and I said, well, you guys go to school, learn how to become an officer. When we talk about becoming warrant officers, a lot of it has to do with who we are and the skills and qualities that another warrant officer is us. So when I say when we're looking at college degrees, leading towards college degrees, I would think that for our community, I understand what you're saying. I understand we don't say that all the time. So I'm hoping that we can start to promulgate, if we're not doing it already, allowing folks to, hey, we need to seriously look at getting towards a degree at some point in the warrant officer career, trying to get there, trying to get to a degree or a degree program, so that when you get out, you have something, you already have something, and you don't have to always use your own money coming in or trying to get a loan repayment program. That's what I do. I don't even know if there's a loan repayment program coming in for a lot of people. I have a home money to agree that I think. So I think that's also an option. Do we have those loan repayment programs in some of the actual MOS that we're talking about in the Army? I know that's not more often, but are there programs?
Not that I'm tracking for my level, but.
Thank you. We got one more question over here, last one. Thank you.
Yeah, hey, Chief Murley, CW3 Murley from DAG 357. So question, when we talk about talent management and looking kind of, as Chief Goodwin hit on, identifying young NCOs, how do I, as a CW3 out in the force, how do I tap into the work that the talent management team is doing in building out enlisted talent management, tying into those programs to identify good candidates that should be successful in the future, and then kind of continue them on into warrant officer talent management?
Yeah, it's a great question. And so our organization is definitely going under some changes and trying to get out of the talent management space to instead into the innovation space, trying to come up with innovative ideas. But a lot of the challenges that we're facing are nothing new. So how do we fix old problems with new ideas? And if it was really easy, I wouldn't have a job because we would already have fixed it. But what I would say is you just got to invest at the individual leader level. So there's probably some models and some tools, the Army Talent Attribute Framework and the Army Talent Assessment Strategy. There's a lot of things going on at the policy and the DA level, but you know what right looks like for soldiers being able to perform their mission and functions. Continue to invest in them, doing that at the soldier level, and then just keep managing that expectations and holding those individuals accountable and then keep them engaged. Because a lot of times when we're looking at our enlisted population getting out, they're not very well engaged, and they're looking for an opportunity to do a job, and that's why they want to become a warrant officer. So just continue and invest in the individual level, and then as I get more into the position and we kind of refine what our organization is doing and the lines of effort, I'll make sure and disseminate it to the cohort so you can link in, not just on the warrant officer side, but on the officer and the enlisted side as well.
Excuse me, Chief, I just want to chime in real quick about the degree piece, just real quick. So you talked about it not being a requirement for you to go get a degree, and specifically our PMEs get you to that. But it continues to show up as a discriminator on promotion. So how do you connect with degrees, getting the credit and promotion, and that's not actually being able to get that from our students doing that real and so forth. And not every warrant officer is equal. Specifically, some warrant officers do get that degree held from their school when they go to their advanced, basic advanced other students. Not everybody gets that.
Yeah. Is this me again? Okay. So,
Can we be clear?
yeah.
No board is gonna ever put, for a warrant officer, I ain't speaking for officers, but for warrant officer, we never put on there that you have to have a degree. Now, if the board results came out and said that most of the people that were selected had a degree, that was different selection criteria, but we will never put on there that you have to have a degree in the MOI. Just put it out there for the board members. But so is everything else. It's not blacked out, but we don't put it as a criteria.
I mean, if you look at the promotion percentages and what we're doing for W3 and W4, it's not very competitive for promotions right now. So I don't think degree is stopping anybody from getting promoted in the current environment. Will that change as we? Yep. Yeah. So how they it's under individual board member philosophy and how they kind of mark that, degrees and not having degrees, but it's not a mandate from the DA boards.
That's very interesting comments. So that's a great segue to transition to our next question for CW5 Davis. The Intelligence Center CCWO. Chief Davis, how does effective management of 011 Alpha billets contribute to the Army's overall operational readiness and the warrant officer career development?
Thanks, Dean. Great intro. First of all, happy to be here. I think, honestly, all this ties together. It all, frankly, nests as we look to manage our more senior levels. To answer a couple things real quick, just to kind of tie a bow on it, within the Intel Center for our PME, we've gone to national and strategic level agencies for certifications. So we've gone more of a technical certification than an academic certification. And then, as Mr. Lawrence said, with the promotion boards and stuff like that, we actually have more W5s right now with no degree than we've ever had before. So I think it's changing a little bit, but obviously education is super important. With that, with the 011 Alpha or the 011 Alpha billets and the CW5 management, it's all really linked. What we're looking for, quite frankly, is a deliberate developmental process, vice discovery learning into some of these positions that are absolutely critical for our Army. So how are we developing, how are we bringing up warrant officers who are, 4s to 5s, 5s to senior 5s, that can go into these positions, work at the Army level, that are in the name branch agnostic and require Army level understanding. Again, not to say that all things are equal, but you're not going to see an officer at a battalion level go be the chief of staff of the Army. You're not going to see an E9 down at the battalion level be the SMA. So how do all of a sudden you get to compete and be the chief warrant officer of the Army when you've never had experience across at an Army level and understand how the Army operates? One, I think it's what we talked about. It's PME continuing in development. It's adding those certifications, adding things that teach you some proponency, teach you some how the Army runs, teach you some things about how the Army actually operates. Again, so it's not that deliberate, it is a deliberate developmental process and not discovery learning, and you're getting into a position where, frankly, if we look where most of these positions are, they are at senior level armies and they're wearing that patch where you are representing our cohort to the most senior officers and enlisted in the Army. And if you're up there figuring it out as you go along, I think most of us at W5 level are professional enough and have the work ethic to achieve, but are you really driving things forward? Are you really moving it at the pace that we need you to move in this limited capacity? So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get a process where we're ahead of a decision-making cycle or a manning cycle. Again, Mr. Lawrence, so he was the warrant officer proponent for the Intel Center when this position came open in November. If you understand and you know how the manning cycle works, that's past, the market's already closed at that point. So then we have a decision to make, the commanding general and I get a vote. Do we know how talented Mr. Lawrence is? We know how important these positions are. Do we just say, hey, you can't compete because we need you here, and if you leave, you create a vacancy? Or do you allow your best and brightest to compete, and then now, as I had to do, find a replacement post-market for one of my most critical positions in the Corps? To me, that's not helping. I had to choose Army readiness over MI readiness, because losing Mr. Lawrence to help Army readiness affected my personal branch, and we had to create mitigation strategies. So if I think getting to the left, a deliberate process, making sure we get these positions out. I don't know who's in charge of it at HRC this year. I saw a lot of the 011 Alpha nominations way early, which was a step absolutely in the right direction. Again, a very deliberate step. And I think people who go into these positions should have one or two positions that they've done that they understand the Army level before you just move into this position. And we can't just put that in there as a discriminator, because we want to make sure we're leaving it open to a lot of people. So we just need to make sure we have a very deliberate process. And Steve Finney came out, visited me. I personally envy, as an intel officer, how the SF manage their W-5s. I know aviation has a very specific way they manage, and we're trying to replicate that as well. So that way, no battalion warrant all of a sudden becomes the USASOC CCWO. They're just not developed that way. So how are we as a cohort ensuring that we're developing and bringing our people up to where now someone who is at Mr. Finney's level, if he went into an 011 Alpha position, he understands, even though he's soft specific, Army level things. So that's just one of the things that we're looking at in terms of readiness, is not having warrant officers go into positions because, and again, I've been involved in this, so I've been at HRC as a branch manager, and I've seen this for a long time, and it usually just comes down to HRC sends down nominations. Hey, each branch nominate one person, and it ends up just being somebody who's in the market, not based off of any skills or requirements. We throw the nomination up, they move into a position, and then it's just discovery learning for every. And I don't think that's good for the individual either. So not just good for that Army readiness, but individual readiness as well. So the main thing is just that deliberate process, predictable process that helps both the individual and the unit to make sure we're getting the people in these positions. And again, I think it ties into PME, it ties into all these different courses that we can go to that develops you this. Because again, for us as technical experts, for years, we're just downing in on one thing. And then at W5, hey, figure your branch out. And then you go to this 011 Alpha billet, and now you have to figure the Army out. That's not the easiest thing to do. And I think we owe our warrant officers a very deliberate process for developing them and making sure that the senior officers and the senior listed in these positions have the warrant officer who's going to best represent that organization in the Army.
Thank you. No comments? Yes, Mr. Corsera.
Number one, thank you, gentlemen, for what you do. You guys are honestly spearheading the ability for us to get from where we're at to transform what we're going to be in the future. And I like where you're going with the 011 Alpha idea, and that bridging the gaps between a lot of things. And I like the way you're looking at the talent management and identifying the skills required in order to bridge that gap and be at that level. Real simple question. Are you also looking at additional 011 Alpha positions, like in division or in corps, et cetera, to help stair-step that way up in order to, one, bring someone up to where they need to be, and two, actually help with recruiting as well?
Thanks, Mike. I would say right now, no. I think those positions at those levels are mostly, when I looked at the UAD, those are mostly CW3, but those were usually, even though it would list in branch and material, it was usually they wanted an aviator, they wanted an AG officer, you could tell based off, there's even a sustainment 011 Alpha position that says sustainment on it. And then I know even for this year, the AXO position, you opened up branch and material, which I think is a good start. But I think we just have to make sure is what is it we want these positions to be? Is it really branch material or is it not? And I don't know at the division level, are you really doing Army? To me, when I think branch and material, I think Army level operations. And at least that's the way when I look at all the different positions on the UAD, minus the Warrant Officer Career College, which is not going to be managed in this manner. That'll still be managed by the Commandant and the Deputy Commandant for all those positions that are just instructors or TAC officers. This is The ones, at least the ones that Mr. Anderson has me looking at specifically right now for the W-5s, are all those Army, the TRADOC position, G357, all those positions where you think of in your mind, man, okay, you're at the front table, right? So if you're at the front table, there should be some development along the way in order for you to get there to be able to hold that position and, quite frankly, be efficient and effective. Because I think that's when, we tie it to readiness, that's what it comes down to, efficient and effective. You see how fast the chief's moving. You see how fast the vice is moving. SMA's moving out. Okay, if you're in the G357 or if you're in TRADOC, you're doing TIC. Okay, I'm a sustainment officer. I've been working quartermaster issues my whole life. Now I have to understand how long-range precision fires and counter UAS and weaponeering of all this different stuff and robotics. Right, how are we helping people get to the level where they can be effective to those officers when they go into those positions and do really well? So I think, just like Mr. Anderson likes to say, iterative process. I think if we can get it right at the Army W-5 level, then we can look right. And then, again, I would personally say, how much broadening is too broadening for a warrant officer if we're supposed to be a scalpel? I think there's also a balance that we have to look at where we don't want to, again, disadvantage lower grade officers and tell them, hey, you're Army level experts when I need you to be that thing. And then, in the aviation community, it's the same way. How long is too long to be outside of a cockpit? That's a very probably limited timeline in your community where you think someone starts to become less combat ineffective. So again, I think it's ballative, taking some iterative steps, and then once we establish, like I said, a deliberate process, now we can move that and scale that to various levels. Hopefully that answers your question, Mike. Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Hills, you got a question?
Hey, CW4 Hills, 740 Alpha Seaburn Technician. First off, thank you, panel, for what you do. Just a couple concerns, maybe. So I am one of the very few warrant officers that has had the opportunity to serve as a senior warrant officer advisor as a W-2, a career manager as a W-3, and also the regimental chief warrant officer as a W-3. When I went into those positions, I had no idea what my responsibilities were. What I did, I reached out to senior leaders, senior warrant officers. Hey, sir, ma'am, can you help me work through this problem? The majority of the feedback I got back was, be yourself, know your boss, get in front of the way they think. And I used that, and it worked to my advantage to where, back when I was the regimental chief warrant officer, I could finish my boss's sentences. And as you go through your career, I'm a W-4 now looking to make W-5, but it's all in studying your boss. If you study your boss and understand the way they think, you can get out in front of their ideas at any level, battalion all the way up to, the chief of staff of the Army. I know the aide for the Sec Army, and I talk to her all the time, like, hey, ma'am, what are you learning as you continue to go through this position? I'm picking up all kind of stuff. You start learning keywords, you start learning trends, you start learning doctrine, you start learning the way that they want to go. So if you understand the way that they got to go, they got a lot of things in their mind, and as we look at technical experts, okay, I can narrow in on this one problem set that they have, and I can present plausible solutions so they can have some type of thought as it relates to that. That is the point of a senior warrant officer in my mind, not, okay, I'm a 740 Alpha, I still need to understand maintaining NBCRVs as a W4, W5. No, my lane now is how the Army runs, how the Army operates. When I understand that as I continue to grow, now I can bring up my junior warrant officers that's struggling down at the company, battalion level, whatever it may be. Hey, here's how you approach your boss. Here's how you approach the way you work. Presence is everything. So, and those are just some tidbits as I continue to strive through my career that has helped me and also helped, a bunch of my mentees. But, that's one of the things, because we listen to senior leaders all the time, they don't even know they have warrant officers in their formation. That's horrible. That is terrible. And we have nobody to blame but ourselves, because if we're tied in, how many brown bag lunches do we do with our CGs? The officers do it all the time. NCO professional development. What about the warrant officer professional development? We already understand we don't get much time to go into PME, so it shouldn't stop there. I should easily be able to reach out to the senior warrant officer on installation. hey, sir, ma'am, I have an innovative idea. Okay, well, let's do lunch, and let's bring in as many warrant officers as we can. Let's do breakfast. Let's do a PT session. That way, the seniors can understand what's going on at the ground level and be able to bring it up to the senior leaders, so we're not looking crazy when we start asking questions of senior leaders about issues that we have. Thanks.
So no question there, but great comment. But what I would tell you is what he just explained was discovery learning. He ran into closed doors, figured stuff out, reached out to people until he found open doors. How do we get ahead of that and to the left of that and create that, again, deliberate process? I think we owe ourselves and our cohort that. So we are, like he said, the officers are going through a deliberate mentorship development process as they figure out who goes into certain KD positions, not going down the KD rabbit hole, but what are those positions that set you up for success in future positions? So what I would like to avoid is not someone finding that officer and say, I know that's the best chemical officer who's going to do the best things for the chemical corps, and hand move them along the way. And again, have a more deliberate process to do that for all branches and, quite frankly, all 3 compos. I'll end with that.
Great comment. So our next question is for...
Can I ask a question? I'm sorry.
Sure.
Please.
5 links. You know, all this stuff is great, but I was a W-5 before I heard that the Army had a course called How the Army Runs. So as an I-15 that just works in mode pool all the time, you know, we're focused in. You get to division, you're focused still down. You get to corps, you're focused a little bit more strategic. But how do we get this information out to the corps, possibly in some PME or something like that, so that every one of the MOSs, because the 420s get it, a lot of other folks get it. We usually don't get it. I've got a very good friend of mine that worked at DAG4 as a W-5. He didn't know that either until he got there and they put him in the quick course, because if you're going to work in the building, you've got to go through that quick course. But for the rest of the Army, we don't necessarily get that, and we don't understand the strategic stuff of, hey, this is how the Army runs, and the processes and procedures and everything else. And I'd like to see us interject some of that into the entire warrant officer force, where we understand that. So if we're going to require that as a 011 Alpha, you know, hey, we need you to understand how the Army runs, and I'm a W-5, I just hear about it, then how are we doing that to set people up for those positions? They might be the best candidate, but they don't necessarily know that information.
Great. Again, what I would say is, you know, poor Mr. Taronis here has the challenge of dealing with multiple branches. I would say if you feel that way in your branch, you need to scream to your, I would say in the intel where I have the ability, I have two levels of how the Army runs within both my ILE and SSE, and like I said, I'm including more executive level stuff in there. You can control your branch PME. Control your branch PME. The career college is never going to be able to do it because they don't have the time and they don't have the money to do it, right? So I say at your branch level, you have to, as senior leaders in this thing, demand that of your corps, your branch CCWOs. Talk to Mr. Taronis. I'm telling you, him and Chief Anderson before him was asking the branches, and some are like, yeah, we're all in. Some are like, yeah, I don't have time for that. So you have to demand that, but then you also want to be competitive for those positions. So which is it? You want to be competitive for these future positions, or you want to put that into your PME? I think we have to kind of demand that and help this poor gentleman here get some of the branches. That's why I think it needs to be a deliberate process across all branches. That creates, and even for aviation, which is very different from technical services, right? But I think you, Mike, should have the same opportunities as I do to compete for the same positions, and the best officer for that organization wins. But we need to have equal pairing as we go into that position, and then the intrinsics are going to determine based off the key leaders what we need. So I think we have to demand it, and we have to, where we can affect change, and to me that's at the branch level, we insert those things and make sure that we're setting our future leader warrant officers up for success. But great question, and couldn't agree with you more.
That's a great point. So you're right, it's at the center level. So as we transition to CW5 Taronis, the CAC CCWO, the question for you is, how is PME modernization evolving to better prepare warrant officers for challenges of future combat environments?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So some of you may know it's been discussed for several years. The warrant officer PME modernization effort has been progressing. It's on schedule to be implemented in FY26. So what does that mean? Well, I'll tell you first, What it means is it's an ability, a way to get after deeper technical skills, right? And that's going to be done by adding a technical course at the junior W-2 ranks. So I'll just run through what the PME structure will look like in FY26 briefly, and then I'll talk a little bit more about where we're at and what it means to you. So first, no change to initial training. WOX, WOBC stays the same. Maybe some hours of WOBC may shift. That's at the branch level to determine. The next course in FY26 will be the Warrant Officer Intermediate course, WOIC, a technical course to be facilitated by the branches at their locations. The next course after that will be tied to W3 selection, the Warrant Officer Advanced course. That will change. It's not going to be the Warrant Officer Advanced course of today. The Warrant Officer Advanced course of 26 will have a resident phase at Fort Novasol, Common Core phase, followed by a branch technical course at the branch locations. And then upon selection for W4, the Warrant Officer Senior course will be attended. That will also be similar to the Warrant Officer Advanced course, the 2 phases, one Common Core phase at Fort Novasol, followed by a branch technical course at their locations. That's all on glide path for implementation in FY26. For FY27, the Warrant Officer Master course will be implemented. That recently got approved through the ALCC TGOSC process. It'll go into the training TGOSC next for funding. There's a bill payer for that, so we are expecting that to continue to move forward in implementation for FY27. The Warrant Officer Master course will not be a branch course. It will be a essentially focus on the nominative positions. Those are still being defined, as stated earlier, what positions will qualify for attendance at the Warrant Officer Master course. Where we're at in this process, Chief Anderson, Steve Kilgore, when he was in his seat, did build irreversible momentum. So where we're at in the process is right now, FY27 SMDR is still ongoing. Quotas, seats for these courses will be part of the FY27 SMDR and the FY26 TRAP. So there's some work at the branch level that still has to be done for some of the MOSs. Some branches are fully complete, and they're just waiting on the quotas to go through the TRAP and SMDR processes, while some branches have some admin work to do to ensure their courses are in those processes as well. We expect that work to be done this month and the quotas to be aligned next month. So in ATARS, you'll start seeing the FY26 class schedules. Right now, you can see the courses that I just mentioned in FY26 ATARS. Soon you'll be able to see the class schedules and the seats associated with those classes. A lot of work's been done on this process. Still more work to do. AR 350-1 is going through revision currently, and it's going to update our continuum. The courses I just mentioned will be part of that update, as long as it gets published as it's currently written. Also going through revision is the career maps. So we had a lot of discussion on PME, college degrees, what does right look like, and I think the consensus was it's kind of at the branch level to determine what's needed by MOS, because there's not a one-size-fits-all answer for our population, right? And I think we're doing the right thing for our MOSs by looking at all this at the MOS level. So the career maps that the branches are the proponents for are going through the revision process as well as part of this effort to update the courses on the career maps. What should also be updated is some of the civilian education, what's ideal for the MOSs. Maybe a certain MOS leans more towards credentials and certifications. Some MOSs have those provided currently at PME, right, and at WOBC. So the branches have that work to do to outline clearly for the population within those MOSs the expectations at each grade in order to continue progressing. So really exciting effort. I think as we heard General Braga speak earlier today about the complexities coming to our Army, processes, technology, equipment, formations, right? Formations are changing. We're going to be more dispersed. We heard about MOS growth, multi-domain task force, right? We got emerging requirements. We have data, right, that's being injected into the Common Core at the Warrant Officer Career College as part of this effort for the branches to build upon if the MOS requires it. So all this work is still ongoing, and I really think a lot of great work was put, the foundation was set 4 or 5 years ago by Steve Kilgore, the CAC leadership back then. Mr. Anderson built on it, and now here we are going into implementation, right? And we're still a year away from implementing, but we do have irreversible momentum at this time. And the outcome of this is, again, getting at our core foundation of the technical experts, the leaders, and the soldiers that we are, that the Army needs us to be, and the Army of the future, right? As we see more complex technology coming our way, and we heard a lot about it this morning. You could walk, I'm sure, in the other building and see all kinds of new technology that, you know, they're trying to pitch, right, for the branches to take on and the acquisition team to take on. So with that, I'll pause for any questions. All right, must have been
I think they're all
brief.
questioned out. No.
This goes back to the CCWO, the 011 Alpha, right? And like you said, the rank versus the 011 Alpha, which is more the Army level, right? So years ago, you know, I asked this question, you know, still haven't got an answer. How is it that we can do a roadmap for our PME, for our warrant officers, saying, hey, this is the steps to continue along the way to get what we CCWO bill for 011 Alpha specifically, at whatever level it is, most of them are above branch, that's why they're 011 Alpha to begin with, right? Why can't we create a career map for young W2, W3 to say, hey, if you're interested in coming outside of your MOS and doing more command chief business or more 011 Alpha business as you grow, these are some of the checks that you need to get along the way. These are some of the courses that you probably need to take. Maybe it's on your own time. Maybe the Army's not going to, you know, allow you to pull out and dedicate, you know, time for this. But if you're truly interested, this is that career map that as an 011 Alpha or command chief, you need to track on your own personal time to make you successful or viable. And last time I checked, we're supposed to be a requirements-driven Army, right? So that CCWO role, or that 011 Alpha role, should have some requirements behind it to allow us to build a map for these young warrant officers that want to achieve that path. Some of us like to say to be technicians, right? So we're going up to be, but some of us don't want to. Some of us want to go a different path.
Right.
So why is it 10 years later that you still can't develop something like that? Because those 011 Alpha and this CCWO, they should have some requirements to help us develop.
Right, absolutely. And I think that some of the members of this panel and other senior warrant officers are working that. So I'll give a kind of two-part answer, and then I'll lean on the team here. First, going back to the career maps, the branches are working those career maps, looking at essentially, you know, I think some branches already do this, a good job of this, right? Tiering some of the W5 positions, right? So when you look at, okay, moving out of the branch and into a 011 Alpha nominative assignment, Pete mentioned it earlier, right? You're not going to go from a battalion to a 011 Alpha job, right? You're going to have to progress. And even as a W5, you still have to progress, right? There's essentially entry-level positions for W5s. And then there's some of the more senior jobs, such as the Regimental Chief Warrant Officer, right, of that branch. Once the branches codify what that tiering looks like, theoretically, those top tiers would then feed into the 011 Alpha assignments, right? Because you would have gotten that breadth of experience at the branch level to then go and move into a higher position. So I think, again, the branches are still working this along with some of the panel members regarding the career maps. And then I'll just turn it over to the team for anything that.
I got it, something if I can add real quick, Carlos. So for MI, what we've done is we've created 2 swim lanes on our career map, an operational swim lane and a nominative broadening swim lane that has some O11 alpha positions in there to give people options with the hope and goal that people weave in between. The only thing that really could happen is, like Mr. Anderson said, some CAC or some DA order, it would be chaos. Because even with my own branch, I have people telling me I'm diluting the warrant officer cohort, I'm ruining warrant officer cohorts, throwing all this stuff on here because we're supposed to be technical experts all the time. So I think it's culturally helping people understand that being broad, again, I think all of us can attest, and everyone in this room, I'm a signals intelligence guy by trade, but my boss had me out there working integrated air defense and counter UAS, which is everything but. If I can only go to my boss on that one thing, I'm of little to no value. Like the gentleman said, know what your bosses need to know. So I think having options and opportunity and allowing people to choose, I think would also help with retention and keeping warrant officers in who want to do more. In our current career field, data analytics is huge. How much data is too much data when you're no longer an intel officer and now you're this other thing? We're trying to figure that right now, so we're offering swim lanes. So I think as we start throwing in for the SF groups, how much robotics operator before you're no longer an operator? Or can you be both? I think you can be both as long as you're maintaining touch points with each. And I think we just owe that visually and graphically. I think, again, to not beat at my own dead horse, but deliberate process and understanding so it's predictable will help us make our junior warrant officers, quite frankly, better than we were and having less of that pain growing up doing more.
Yeah, and just before I wrap up, I really want to emphasize that while we're talking the PME modernization effort, that's the one domain, right, the institutional domain of leader development. We still have the operational and the self-development domains. Mm-hmm. Those career maps are key for an individual to be their best career manager, right, and align themselves with opportunities in either of those 3 domains to get to where they're trying to get to, right? So sometimes, yes, there will be self-development to finish that college degree in some cases, right? Or get after technical certifications that maybe WOBC or the future WOIC doesn't offer. But we got programs for that, right? That we got funding aligned for that as well. So I just want to emphasize that as key as senior warrant officers, as leaders in this room, that we continue to coach, mentor the junior warrant officers, encourage them to explore the career maps, coach them through how to get to where you're at, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not all going to be in PME, not by any means. Mike said it earlier, that's like 4 months of your career, right? And maybe it's a little bit longer, right? But that's just a small fraction of a career, right? The majority of the time is operational, and then what you do on your own in self-development. So I'll just end with that. Thank you.
You have a question over there at the mic?
Yeah.
Oh.
I guess.
Sure.
I think it comes back to what Mr. Davis said. If you try to implement something at the department level, it would be a disaster. It's really incumbent on the proponents and those warrant officer proponents to develop what that map looks like. So we talked a couple of years ago about going down the road with KD assignment. I don't think that's necessarily helpful based on the connotations on the officer side of the house. I think for warrant officers, every job is being developed. And they build those KD jobs on the officer side for a specific reason to get them to the point. I think we're different, but I think if you look at career enhancing jobs for people who maybe didn't want to stay technical or broadly across the army, I think those types of career would be helpful. So I think some branches are already doing it, as mentioned. I just think we need to take a little bit deeper look at that.
Hey, CW3 Murley again. And I think that the discussion on career maps leads kind of like right into my question. So one of the things that exists on my career map as an Intel guy is the School of Advanced Military Studies. How does SAMS fit into the PME structure? And to my understanding, currently only Special Forces and Fires have established agreements with the schoolhouse that teaches SAMS to attend SAMS. How do we get kind of past that? So a little bit of a two-part question, sir.
So a great question. We do have warrant officers that attend SAMs. There's some currently at Leavenworth. Really, that goes kind of back to the branches, honestly. How does the branches see SAMs fitting in that specialty, right? Some branches see a direct tie correlation and they are attending. Other branches have declined. So it's kind of at the branch level to determine, is that value added for their population? Do they need that education or not? Again, depending on that technical, functional skill that those MOSs provide. So not a one-size-fits-all answer. And I think we have to stay away from that for our cohort. That's my own opinion. But rightfully so, right? Because I think we're all unique and the skills we bring are critical to our Army. But maybe not every MOS needs to go to SAMs. But what other opportunities should those MOSs be exploring, like training with industry, for example? You know, there's a lot of opportunities out there that the branches have to weigh and explore.
That's a great point. So our next question is for CW4 Fry, the Warrant Officer Recruiting Command Commander. What strategies are being implemented to improve warrant officer sessions, and how do they support the creation of combat-ready formations?
Thank you. First, Chief Anderson, thank you for bringing us up here. This is a great panel. This is a great opportunity. Thank Chief Registe, Chief Gadsden, for allowing me to be here as an engineer. I don't only just take care of mine. I remember Chief Registe, when I took this job, you're like, now you're in charge of almost 50 MOSs that you've never really worked with in your career. So it's just amazing opportunity to get to know every one of you. And I couldn't do this job without everybody out there. In this room, every warrant officer, your being present is the biggest part of what makes my job easy. It makes my 23 recruiters that I have that cover the entire globe. That's all I have is 23. Without your guys' help and support, I wouldn't even come close. But thank you guys. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You guys are just amazing to me. Thank you, Chief Dr. Jaira Sanchez, for selecting me for this job when it came open. My wife thanks you every day for this job. She absolutely loves me, that I'm home a lot more. Being an engineer, we're in the field a lot. But we had another record year. We had 5,500 applicants apply this year. 3,300 of them made it to the board due to medical conduct, all the other waivers and stuff. Chief Bilton had to see most of those. Thank you. You know, but and we ended up with 99.5% precision this year. We were only short by 8 packets or 8 applicants this year for Compo 1. We couldn't have done it again without you guys. There's several different implementations we've done with this. I've sent most of you guys, there's several people in this room, I've sent TDY with using our TARE. I've used USAREC a lot, and we've got TARE assets to send you guys out everywhere. I realized you send a proponent regimental and your branch manager out, a lot more warrant officers come out of their holes and go to visit them because they want to know what assignment they want next. If I just set myself, nobody would come out of their hole to go see Chief Fry or one of my other recruiters. They come out to see their branch manager because you guys affect their careers. You guys really do. And you guys just showing up and helping me out when you guys are TDY is just, I can't thank you guys enough. I'm telling you, when I do this, it's not because I love it. You know, it's SF, I love you guys. Eli, Chief Gum, you guys have made awesome strides in helping me get into your guys', I hate to say it, I go into your guys' compound and I grab your support elements to help me out because everybody has a person that they go to for something, right? Hey, I know a guy. When you guys need an answer, you have that E6, E5. Why aren't you asking them to be warrant officers? You know, everybody focuses on their one MOS. I'm only an engineer, so I'm only going to focus on my 120 alphas. I don't need just engineers. I need every one of my 50 MOSs out there. And we all have that one person that we go to for support. And remember, just because they switch over to warrant doesn't mean you don't have that support. They will support you the rest of their career. It's pretty cool. Like, I have W3s that are like, hey, Chief, you saw me in the McDonald's line at JBLM 7 years ago, and now I'm a W3. Without you talking to me for that 30 seconds, I would still just be in the field. More initiatives we've come up with is going to where the people, we go to Poland a lot. We go to where the people are. So we go to Yakima, we go to all the training facilities. We even hit up Compo 2 and 3 at Los Alamitos in California, Hunter Liggett out there, and help them a lot as well. We have their websites and everything on our website, gowarrantnow.com. We have the Compo 2 and 3 points of contact for every state on there or for that MOS. So it's simply amazing how all 1, 2, and 3 compos align almost together. Because I've had so many people getting out of the military, we encourage to go straight into warrant officer when they get out, to go to Compo 2 and 3 and go to that state. I know, like the engineers, we go right to Frank Davis. Well, now he's retiring, but he's in Ohio. It's crazy how many people, if I needed somebody in Washington State, I'd go to Mikey Brown. We know so many people throughout our cohort, and it's just getting smaller. The longer I get up here, like, it's weird when I make my way across the rooms, how many people that I've seen for years. And it's just amazing. And thank you guys for helping me out with this. I'll stop with there for questions. Sorry, I can go on forever. Awesome.
Any questions? Well, no questions. We'll go ahead and end the panel. Thank you guys for coming out. It's been great. Do you have something? I appreciate you using the mic. The only W5 that used the mic, by the way, just stats.
Would I be sure? No, I'm just playing. This question is for Chief Fry. What are you doing to bridge the educational gap with the current political climate? And what I mean by that is we have gone from a time of where we've seen the grandkids and great-grandkids, and everyone has wanted to serve in that community. I talked to we were on the Hill, we did a Hill engagement not too long ago, and at that engagement, I talked to one of the senior representative staff members who said that their both grandfathers were in World War II, but because they never talked to their kids about joining the military, they never talked to their kids. And for the first time, there's two brothers. One of them is overseas. He's an E4. He's infantry, and he wanted to go infantry. Didn't want to do anything else. And he is a staff member on Capitol Hill, and he's like, well, I'm from a white-collar community who they didn't talk to us about joining the military, and because of the political climate, we're seeing more and more of our parents, not our grandparents or great-grandparents, tell us, well, maybe military isn't the right thing for you. How are you bridging that gap? How are you fixing that problem?
Well, it's not just only, it's actually the USAREC has identified this and implemented the 420 Tango. They've identified, just because your demographics are certain towns and certain, depending on where you live, it isn't, you can't just market the Army. General Gant's doing a really good job in realizing just because you're from the same city but you live in a different borough doesn't mean you can market it exactly the same way. Many of us grew up, I grew up, my dad was a Vietnam vet. I couldn't get a Vietnam vet story out of him for the life of me. Not until after I joined, then I was worthy to hear the stories. It was weird, you know. But it's true, though. A lot of people don't like telling their story, and General Davis really encourages us to go out and tell our story. Go to your high schools that you came from and realize that there is some great opportunities out there. It's not just deploy, come home anymore. Go out there and tell your stories to your hometowns. You know, if you need money to do it, I can send you two as well. Chief Sanchez tried to send, there was 5 W5s from my little town in Montana that were currently active duty at the time. She tried to set it all up, but stuff like that. Encourage your soldiers to go back and get out in the community. Wear your Army or your T-shirts out and about. Don't just sit there and be like, I'm going to take off the uniform before I leave, because, you know, don't be embarrassed to wear all your stuff out there. Encourage soldiers and everybody to hear your voice out there. They all want to talk. Like I said, I can talk to, Chief Sanchez knows I can talk to anybody. But I love it, because just wearing your T-shirts out there, your unit T-shirts, what's that mean? The person behind you sees it, you know, and they'll ask you weird and simple questions like that. And don't be like, don't worry about it. And, you won't understand. But tell your story. That's how we get to these people. And a lot of people still don't like, I know we don't have the 50% retirement, but we still have a 40% retirement. You know, we still have a pension. People forgot that it didn't just go away. you still get a 40% pension after 20 years. The Army went away from even talking about a pension when they got out. They spent so much money and time talking about the 401k matching and stuff like that. Every business out there does that, you know, but they forget to talk about the pension. But General Gant is doing amazing stuff in AMO, and I love working with her for us, for the RSOFT and everything.
Yes, that's a great point for everyone. Tell your story, because everyone wants to hear from a real American hero. So that's who's going to follow you to sign up, is hearing it from real life people like you. But as we close, I want to turn it over to Chief Anderson for closing comments. Thank you all again.
Good job, Dean.
Well, I would certainly like to thank the panel for being here and taking your time today and providing the insights that you have. Really appreciated. I'd like to thank a couple other folks too, putting on an event like this, getting everything arranged, making sure all the guest speakers are here. It's a pretty heavy lift, so I'd like to recognize CW3 Josh Golden, my XO, for doing a lot of the heavy lifting on this. Great job, Josh. Really appreciate it. I'd like to thank Mr. Doug Englund for helping us moderate today. I really appreciate your support. Really greatly appreciated. And then I'd like to thank the association for doing all that they do on all of our behalf. So yeah, let's give them a round of applause. Great job, Mike, and the rest of the team. Really appreciate that. And lastly, thank all you for coming and being here today and being a participant. It's really appreciated from my foxhole. So thank you for doing that. Please extend our thanks to Lieutenant General Braga for coming in this morning and talking to us. A really great discussion this morning. There's more warrant officer events tomorrow. So tomorrow we have General Beck coming in talking about protection. We have Dr. Alex Miller coming to talk about technology and where we're moving as an Army. He's the Army Chief Technology Officer, so I think that'll be good. And then for a select group, we have the Army Warrant Officer Council meeting. So again, thank you everybody for being here. Look forward to seeing you out on the floor, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks.
Trash from here.